Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm incredibly proud of being here, and I'm thankful to you for keeping in touch with Ukraine, for standing with Ukraine, for seeking to have first-hand information in this world of post-truth and the world where just the traditional values have been shaken, and we don't know what to do and how to behave. And the only way for us to behave and to do something is to deliver the truth about Ukraine and to speak about our people. And this is mission number one. That's why when Olenka offered me to have this presentation, I said definitely yes. And I'm happy to be here with you today. Uh, If you don't mind, so what I can add? So I can add only one thing. I am a happy grandmother, and I am an advocate of all the child and children in the world. And I'm sure that as what child says, so no child should ever be part of the war, ever. And just the event that happened in Ukraine when 9 children were killed just when they were peacefully playing on the playground just cannot let me go. And I keep thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I'm an educational researcher, because everything I do for children and for Ukrainian education. And the most important thing for me is that I really believe in the importance of what I am doing.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Oksana. So now we can start the presentation, I guess. Thank you for this introduction.
yes, yes, if the slides do not change, so you will tell me about it.
Sure. Now all
Well,
fine.
yeah, great. When I was offered to have this presentation, it was incredibly easy for me to come up with the topic. Just unbreakable and resilient stories of Ukrainian teacher strength and vulnerability. So on the one hand, the topic is very easy and understandable, and on the other hand, it is quite difficult for me because it brings together quite opposite things and everything at once. Above all, this is a topic of paradoxes and contradictions. Look, we all recognize that resilience comes after hardship, after destruction. It is a symbol of endurance and renewal. So then, how do we pair it with unbreakability? Unbreakable, the one that has not been broken, and resilient. So strange, isn't it? Strength and vulnerability are also opposite concepts. And what drew us to this combination? We'll see. And who are those people, teachers, who embody such contradictions and who carry both strength and fragility within them, and who rise after being struck down by fate only to help other people to rise as well? So I began with kind of mixed feelings and conflicting thoughts. So I don't expect, so you cannot expect from me to be very structured today. So do not expect me to deliver a structured academic lecture. I will jump back and forward in time and sometimes logically, sometimes not that logically. I will share my perspectives that can be a little bit subjective because this is what I feel and what I see, and you can see the things quite differently. So this is for us to discuss in the question and answer session. So make yourself comfortable, get ready to dive into a chaotic narrative about chaotic events, about this chaotic time which we are all living in now. Feel free to write down your questions either in the chat or in your notebooks so we can discuss them later. Uh, it might sound as if I'm going to recall about some distant past, about history. I wish it were like this way. Unfortunately, it's not the past. It's past that, but not that distant, and it will become past when the war is over, which cannot be seen now, unfortunately. So the events are growing even more tangled, chaotic, and incomprehensible. So, you all know that Ukrainians think in images. So, actually, I generated this image with the help of artificial intelligence. And you all feel it that Ukrainians express themselves and through art, through words, through poems. And when the war started, the first thing that came, it was not traditional for Ukraine, that people started using a lot of bad language. So much bad language, so many bad words I had never heard before, and I hope I will never hear. So they were swearing, and it was kind of expressing their emotions. But then, when the horrors of Bucha and Irpin were revealed, they started just there was a shift, and the poetry just started to flow in torrents, and ordinary people, not poets, not professional poets, turned to write poems and as a means of processing their emotions. And I collected a lot of them from Facebook, where they placed it just for other people to see. And later appeared songs. All of us know Oi Luzi Червона Калина and Stefania that can be easily recognized. So they were kind of messages to the world. And then came the stress on images and visual representation. And perhaps it's not coincidence that President Zelensky wanted to show photographs to Trump, hoping to evoke an emotional response, but perhaps he chose the wrong person for such an appeal. So he was not a person to understand our images. Today, I also want to share certain visual images with you. Photographs I took myself in Irpin. A brief backstory. 2 years before the war started, in collaboration with Australian Association Council for Educational Research and with the support of Legal Foundation, uh, I mean Ukrainian Educational Research Association, I'm heading now, conducted a study of learning through play. It involved first grade students tracking their development over time. And when the war started, those children were already in grade 4, and they were supposed to conduct, we were supposed to conduct the final round of research interviewing them. By that time, the school was bombed, ruined completely, and not completely, but partially ruined and rebuilt. So we came to Irpin just to interview the children. And I took these images within the diameter of 1 kilometer, no, radius of 1 kilometer. So the first image shows a house that appears untouched by the war, warm, cozy, as if nothing has changed. And yet long ago, tanks rolled across its lawn. I know it because I know the people who live in this house. So they saw it through the video surveillance. The second one is of a house's fence, riddled with shrapnel and bullet holes. You can see it if you have a better look. But instead of leaving the scars as they were, people painted flowers over them, an act of refusal to let destruction define them. The third image, also just very, very close to those two, is of completely destroyed house. To me, these three images symbolize different responses to trauma and hardship. The first one represents resistance, a person who either refuses to acknowledge the tragic reality and carries on as before, or is so strong willed that they manage to function as if nothing has changed, either very unaware or incredibly strong. But when war surrounds you, when drones and missiles fill the night sky, it's nearly impossible to remain in this state. The second image is resilience. People who learn to live in difficult circumstances and who find ways to add beauty to their shattered world, to bring joy, to bring strength and hope despite everything. And this is precisely what we are discussing today, the resilience of Ukrainian teachers. And who knows how many people they have supported, how many they have saved from falling into post-traumatic stress disorder, which is represented by the third image, the complete devastation, the struggle to return to normalcy when everything is destroyed, when there is no support, no hope, and no future. That is why resilience is so crucial. And that is what we talk about today in the context of how teachers, these extraordinary people full of contradictions, help to shape and nurture resilience in others. Today I'm going to share the results of teacher survey. I will characterize it, say who participated. Also, I will speak about teacher resilience levels, then about their activities or what they do and how they reacted to the start of the war. Also, I will share the findings about the teacher coping strategies, and I'll draw conclusions, but they will be preliminary conclusions because real conclusions can be drawn only after we have talked to each other, after you have asked questions or gave your comments, and I will answer. And only after that we can draw the line and make some conclusions. So we had this teacher survey a few months after the start of the war, as we realized how important it is to document the things. This time is terrible, but this time is so important. That means that we should keep it in mind and we should remember every moment of it. And we were really happy that the teachers responded. And this exploration can provide valuable insights into how teachers adapt, persist, and potentially thrive despite significant obstacles, offering lessons for supporting education in war contexts globally. So we asked the question, how do Ukrainian teachers contribute to building resilience? Both their own and that of their students during the ongoing war, and what strategies do they employ to sustain education in times of crisis? For our research, we employed a mixed method approach, combining the analysis of quantitative data obtained through a survey with qualitative analysis of texts received from responses as answers to open-ended questions. This methodology was chosen as a quantitative component involved in the collection and statistical analysis of data to identify patterns, trends, and correlations within the survey responses. The qualitative aspect facilitated a deep exploration of individual experiences and perspectives, providing detailed insights that complemented the numerical data. Well, this questionnaire elicited information, some demographic information in terms of age, teaching and experience, and other things. Also, impact of war and personal experience. We asked questions about displacements, loss of property, asked them to describe the day when the full-scale war began, describe challenges, impact of war on their professional life, also about coping strategies. And one of the principal tools that was used in this study was scale of protective factors, Ponce-Garcia, and it was selected due to its specific orientation towards assessing resilience in individuals who encountered violent trauma, making it particularly relevant to our research and to examining resilience among Ukrainian teachers amid ongoing war. For questionnaire distribution, I remind you that they were the first months of the war, so it was very difficult to reach people, and just ask them to participate in a survey was a real challenge. Well, so we used the method of snowball sampling. The questionnaire was distributed to teacher communication groups, and we requested teachers to participate in the survey and to further distribute it among their professional and professional networks. And this approach was selected to get data from a broader group of teachers and bypass the challenges associated with obtaining direct access to school. We did not have it, as you might understand. This study included 653 Ukrainian teachers ranging from elementary to secondary education, with a significant majority being females, as It is quite understandable. Teachers in Ukraine are predominantly females, having more than 20 years of teaching experience. More than half of the respondents had more than 20 years experience and they wanted to participate. Working across different regions of Ukraine, and the largest percentage was from Cherkasy region. This is because I am from Cherkasy region, and maybe just when they knew me as a researcher, they wanted to support me in that, which is quite natural. But we had practically all the Ukrainian regions, even occupied ones, presented here. Uh, uh, First, what we did, we analyzed the answers connected with teacher resilience. And what did we see? According to the results, the vast majority of Ukrainian teachers demonstrated either a high or moderate level of expressed resilience. And however, it is very difficult to say whether it truly reflects the actual state of things because the results can be influenced. They can be influenced, at least to some extent, by social desirabilities. Teachers always want to be the best marks, the best tests, successful. So sometimes they give answers not what they really feel and what really is, but what they think we expect them to say. So that's why. Anyway, so these are the results. And the next step of the analysis was to investigate whether certain demographic factors are related to resilience levels. And understanding their relationships can have practical implications, such as informing targeted interventions to improve resilience among specific demographic groups, or guiding further research that can contribute to resilience. So we uh, just did some correlations and to see whether age or teaching experience and gender or region, here we meant proximity to the border or to the Black Sea, actually those who were more exposed to this invasion or displacement, for example. So we just correlated demographic factors and exposure to the war to see if the level of resilience depends on it somehow. But the result indicates that there is no strong evidence of a relationship between the demographic characteristics of war impact and the resilience scores of the teachers in the dataset. The lack of significant correlation suggests that resilience is a complex trait influenced by multiple factors beyond simple demographics or even direct experiences of the war. And this complexity might involve psychological, social, or environmental factors, and they are not covered in this data set. It's too simple to see all the nuances. And the findings underscore the importance of individual differences and suggesting that resilience cannot be accurately predicted based on demographic factors alone. And the analysis limited to linear relationships may not capture the true nature of how these factors interact with resilience. These findings underline the necessity for further research, as qualitative research can provide deeper insights into the personal and contextual factors. So we tried to analyze the texts and their actions. And as I said, the questionnaire contained the open question: please describe what you were doing on the 24th of February 2022, focusing on the teacher's immediate reaction to the early morning news about the full-scale war, which in most parts of Ukraine was accompanied by explosions. In the process of analyzing qualitative data collected from the survey responses, the complexity and volume of the data necessitated a nuanced approach to categorization. To enhance the efficiency and accuracy of the task, we enlisted the assistance of AI data analysts designed to parse and categorize large data set through natural language processing techniques. And following the AI-driven categorization, a manual review was conducted to ensure accuracy and the relevance of the categorized responses. Based on the responses, several themes or categories reflecting the experiences and actions of individuals on the 24th of February were identified. And the first group was about receiving news about the war. And you see that people gave different information about the sources of information about the war, and some the responses describe how individuals first learn about the start of the war, often through phone calls from relatives or colleagues, and they just didn't know what to do. The next group of responses was about preparatory actions, and this includes packing, withdrawing cash, buying medicine, groceries, making plans to move to safer locations. You know, however much we might have heard about the war, we didn't want to believe it because our authorities assured us that we should prepare for May holidays and not for emergency suitcases. So we did. Actually, I was as a visiting professor in Gdansk in Poland when the war started. So, and on the third day after the war started, I waited for 3 days in the hope that it would end. But after 3 days, I just was returning home and I had this kind of, I was going to Ukraine and I couldn't find other people who were doing the same thing because thousands of people in Przemysl were moving in the opposite direction. So it was an incredible experience, really. And it took me like 5 hours to get to Gdansk because I was flying, and it took me 2 days to get home in a week's time. Okay, so people packed suitcases, they withdrew money, bought medicines, wanted to leave, but a lot of them had to stay because their husbands, for example, or sons or brothers joined territorial defense units and they stayed to support them. Also, you see a lot of text because most of the responses were work-related. Even when the war started, look, teachers were waiting for the order from school administration on what to do further. Or they rushed with a laptop to conduct an online session from the place of relatives. Went to school for the first lesson at 8. Was on the way to school. It's incredible. So, and she says that at 6:30, parents began to announce and mass that their children would be absent. I went to school. She went to school. You see, out of 29 students, only 3 came, but they were taken away 30 minutes later. We watched the news online and didn't know what to do next. I myself had a professional development course with teachers from Kharkiv. And Kharkiv was the city that was one of the first that were exposed to the war actions and explosions, and they joined. Teachers are really incredible people. Well, it couldn't but had some emotional reactions. Yes, and this is quite natural that people feel fear, they panic, they cry, they are worried. They can't believe. They pray, they feel despair, but they feel patriotism. That is strange. Patriotism is not the feeling and not to feel and to experience when the war starts, but our people did. And this is really something unbelievable. Well, immediate physical reactions. Our body leaves and our body responds somehow, and it responds in different ways. So when you run away, and when you live in a town near a strategic facility, you can hear explosions in the morning. Yes, windows ring and you are frightened. So when you are woken up by terrible roar above the head, you definitely might have a temperature of 39 degrees Celsius. But listen, look, in the work chat, we received instructions on our next steps, and in the children's chat, questions poured in. What's going on? Will we survive? Why is it so noisy? How can we calm down? We were waiting for further instructions from the authorities. What an incredible responsibility on the teacher's part to be asked the questions from the students, what are we going to do? This is really incredible responsibility, especially if you yourself do not know what you are going to do in the next hour. In the face of stress and aggression, I sought refuge for my family. A frightened woman with a 3-year-old child in my arms, I fled the city to the suburbs, afraid of explosions. So, this is really hard to establish control over the situation, but teachers did. At least they tried. There are a lot of mentions of trying to stay calm and organize families, students, and others, and about volunteering. This is about assistance to displaced people, standing at the checkpoint, checking whether the students are okay, calming the children, transforming a barn to a bomb shelter, talking a lot to relatives, cooking for defense units, volunteering, providing psychological support, pouring Molotov cocktails. And this one is important. Appealing to former friends in Russia, urging them to protest against the war, but they did not listen. Now we know that they did not hear us because they didn't want to. All of us talked to friends and relatives, but we spoke different languages, though the languages might be Russian and Ukrainian, but still they didn't understand us. Yes, setting up shelters for refugees, opening the doors to just give some space to people who were running away. Actually, I am in Uman in the center of Ukraine, so we just hosted a lot of people I knew or I even didn't know, acquaintances of acquaintances whom I didn't know, but still the doors were open. And it's a separate group when people had to adapt to complex challenges. Anyway, all the problems that we encountered in life still persisted, but the war added. So, for example, I took my youngest daughter's temperature. It was soaring. I was at a loss. Or I was on maternity leave with a newborn baby. Or I was going to work to look after my sister who had cancer. Or on that day, my father died. Can you imagine? Or I was sick with COVID. There is you see, the responses are quite different, various, and they present main type of experiences shared by respondents. And further analysis involved coding all the responses according to these categories to quantify the prevalence of each theme. And after categorizing the responses, we found this following distribution of themes among the analyzed responses. And the results indicate a variety of experiences and reactions among the respondents. And the other category is the biggest one. It suggests that there might be a range of unique or less common experiences not captured by the predefined themes. And the prevalence of work-related responses highlights that a significant number of teachers sought to maintain their professional responsibilities, possibly as a means of preserving normalcy or contributing to balanced functioning during difficult times. And this result underscores the importance of work and routine in providing a sense of stability of purpose. Receiving news points to the moment of initial shock and the mechanisms through which teachers learned about the war. This theme underscores the role of communication and information in shaping individuals' immediate understanding and reactions to crisis. It's quite difficult to understand and to imagine what the people in the occupied territories might feel when they just were deprived of information. This is one of the most terrible things. Certainly, efforts to maintain control reflects proactive behaviors aimed at managing the situation, supporting others, and organizing community resources. This indicates a deliberate effort among individuals to counteract feelings of helplessness and to contribute positively to their communities. Immediate physical reactions and emotional responses highlight the visceral impact of the war. These lower frequencies suggest that while profound, such reactions may be more personal and less frequently articulated than actions taken in response to the crisis. The preparatory actions category, adapting to compound challenges, though smaller in number, reveal the depths of the crisis' immediate impact and the layered complexity of navigating multiple challenges simultaneously. The complex challenges require some reaction, and teachers all needed some strategies to cope with it, to know what to do, how to behave, how to react, because everything was so unexpectedly. And the questionnaire had different items that asked about these strategies and the distribution of teachers' responses. So it was like a scale was used for defining it just on the scale from 1 to 5, and distribution of responses across the resilience metric suggests several important conclusions about how teachers were coping with stress related to the war and fostering their resilience. A significant group of teachers, actually 68%, never, seldom, or only moderately seek social support from colleagues, friends, or family, indicating that while social support is accessible, there is a notable trend towards teachers acting more as providers rather than seekers of this support. This tendency is also evidenced by the information gathered from teachers about their immediate responses to the war described above. Provide support is more characteristic of teachers than get support. A substantial percentage of teachers report often to very often engaging in professional development activities, suggesting a strong commitment to enhancing resilience and adaptability through professional growth. It is not possible to determine whether the courses selected by teachers focused on socio-emotional health and well-being, or if they opted just for professional development in a broader context, as this detail was not included in the questionnaire. However, this could be an area for future research. The data reveals a limited reliance on online communities among teachers for emotional support and professional advice by a significant percentage, indicating not at all, a little, and moderately as their level of engagement. This suggests some skepticism or underutilization of online communities for support during the war. This can also be attributed to the fact that teachers are involved in various online communities for communication with students, parents, colleagues, administration, which may lead to greater sense of fatigue from online communities rather than perceiving them as means of support. Majority of teachers are practicing mindfulness or relaxation techniques at least some of the time, although a significant portion still rarely or never use these methods. Responses also indicate relatively even distribution across spectrum of physical exercise as coping mechanism. This suggests varied attitudes toward physical exercise with no single trend dominating. However, a significant number of teachers turn to hobbies or personal interests, at least moderately, highlighting the importance of personal leisure activities and coping with stress. Particularly beneficial and valuable are those hobbies associated with monotonous, soothing actions such as embroidery, knitting, paint by numbers, and caring for plants, among others. While the majority of teachers report managing to balance work and personal life to moderate extent during the war. It's noteworthy that only a combined total 23% actually believe that they balance work and personal life quite well. However, responses to open-ended questions highlight that amidst the war, teachers are increasingly recognizing the importance of family and express the desire to spend as much time as possible with their loved ones. This highlights some discrepancy between the growing value placed on family time during the war and relatively low percentage of teachers who feel they manage this quite well. A large majority of teachers rarely or never seek professional psychological support, 88%, which might indicate barriers to access in mental health services or a kind of cultural or stigma-related hesitation towards seeking this kind of support. I am not ill, they say. I don't need this support. By exploring this intricate interplay between professional responsibilities, individual coping mechanisms, and the broader wartime context, this study sheds some light on the unique manifestations of resilience among Ukrainian teachers. These findings contribute to the discourse on educational resilience in conflict-affected regions and highlight how professional identity, community, and purposeful engagement help buffer against adversity. The study reveals that resilience among Ukrainian teachers is not a fixed trait, but a dynamic, evolving capacity shaped and strengthened through ongoing professional engagement and a deeply rooted sense of responsibility. Crucially, this form of resilience appears to lay the groundwork for post-traumatic growth, not post-traumatic disorder, and transformative process wherein individual and communities not only endure hardship but emerge with enhanced psychological strength, redefined values, and renewed purpose. The results suggest that support interventions aiming to foster teacher resilience should move beyond generalized categorization based on demographics or exposure to trauma. Instead, a more refined approach is needed, one that considered personal stories, psychological resources, and sociocultural contexts of each individual. Importantly, despite geographic proximity to conflict zones or direct experience of war-related disruptions, these stresses alone did not significantly diminish teachers' reported resilience levels. This finding points to the presence of protective factors and adaptive responses that may facilitate post-traumatic growth we all seek and we all need. Qualitative insights derived from open-ended responses illustrate the profound emotional and psychological complexity of Ukrainian teachers' experiences. They strive to balance personal vulnerability with professional duty, often at the cost of their own well-being. Narratives show a spectrum of resilient responses, from maintaining routines and classroom responsibilities to confronting emotional exhaustion, adapting to new teaching environments, and fostering community cohesion. These responses reflect not just survival, but growth through adversity, reinforcing the notion that trauma can catalyze personal and collective transformation. A particularly striking finding is the strong tendency among teachers to offer support rather than seek it. This altruistic orientation, deeply embedded in their personal identity, embodies a paradoxical blend of strength and vulnerability. While teachers are themselves affected by trauma, they instinctively prioritize their students' and communities' well-being. However, this selflessness may hinder recognition of their own needs, which very often happens. And data suggests that many teachers undervalue the benefits of professional mental health resources, online peer communities, and mindfulness practices, an area that warrants cultural and educational shifts in beliefs, awareness, and openness. The centrality of professional engagement in natural resilience and facilitating post traumatic growth cannot be overstated. The commitment to teaching and continuous professional development provides educators with a stabilizing framework, source of identity, routine, social connection, and meaning amidst chaos. The stories of teachers who continued working, supporting families, organizing shelters, and volunteering from the very outset of the full scale invasion highlight how education served as both a refuge. By the way, most people stayed at schools when they wanted and needed to, and a vehicle for renewal. The experiences of these educators resonate with those of teachers in conflict zones worldwide, underlying the universal importance of community, purpose, and adaptive strategies. In sharing these stories, we offer not only documentation of resilience, but also a vision of how education can serve as a foundation for recovery, renewal, and growth, even in the hardest times, which will survive, I'm sure. Now, questions or comments?
Thank you, Oksana. Thank you for this insightful presentation. I just want to add that I think another thing that already show us how those teachers unbreakable is that I can't even imagine them probably sitting in a shelter at the beginning of the war and fill out that story. Like it's already sounds absolutely crazy for me actually, because if you think of the beginning of the war when nobody know what to do, where to go, and these people was like taking part in a survey for the research. So that's already show us and like a lot about our Ukrainian teachers. And so yes, thank you again. And does anyone have any questions? I see Uliana probably.
Yes, Pani Oksano, witаю was. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah.
As you know, I did a sort of parallel research in this area, and something that your work raises for me is about, this ad astra per aspera, this through adversity to the stars, which is being experienced by the educational community. Now, after 3 years, are we seeing an evolution in this regard, meaning as the war goes on and the adaptive strategies are developed further or evolve, that there's a kind of a level of improvement in this dynamic situation? I'm speaking particularly about creative approaches because very often adversity leads to innovation. So I know that with my group, it was the same problem, the communication at the start, the initial responses, then the sort of the reflective responses. But what I noticed even in the months, this about 6 months that I was doing research at the beginning, that these creative developments started to snowball. Did you notice anything like that in your findings?
Yes, thank you very much. I was lucky, Ulana, to be present in your presentation, and this incredible approach with pieces of art actually created by them was, yes, very interesting. Yes, what I noticed in the way teachers behave and how they work. So, as the British Council master trainer, I have been communicating with a lot of teachers of English, delivering their course teaching and learning in in difficult times. And it was about trauma-informed learning and teaching. And the teachers whom we met were incredibly creative, and quite a lot of them said that this creativity was even enhanced after the beginning of the war. Maybe they were trying to explain it by this contrast. Yes, it's very difficult to be creative when you didn't when you had the sleepless night listening to the drones above your head. This is like last night. This was terrible, but in the morning, so you get adjusted to it, and you go on working. And now we are having a research with the Watch Child about the online application Can't Wait to Learn. This is an online application for mitigating the educational losses, and it's designed specially for primary school students. But what our so and this similar application is used with many different countries that were just marked by conflict and refugees. What our teachers do with that application is something incredible. So I should never have thought that this can be done with such simple things. This is like the whole, I don't know, theater in class with happy children enjoying it. And what I should say is that children cannot be the same because they teach quite completely different children. When we were in Irpin for the interview, we communicated with a lot of children individually, and I will never forget the words from that one boy pronounced. And the question was, "What do you do when you get angry?" I know what he answered. I try to remember it just exactly so. "When I get angry, I accumulate all the negative energy, take it inside, and let it go to the ground through my feet because I do not want to return it." These children are very psychologically mature and they are adults. They became adults just overnight. So teachers should be different to teach these different children. And what I also noticed was the growing teachers' agency. Teachers do not rely on someone to help them and to assist them and to teach them. They create communities, and these teacher activity groups and self-led communities are quite remarkable now. But they are tired. They are really tired. That's true.
Thank
You
you.
could
Thank
say,
Oksana.
sorry for interrupting, that these are homegrown or organic means to deal with PTSD.
Yes, that's true. Doing nothing is to fall into PTSD.
Thank you, Oksana. Does anyone have any other questions?
Maybe I thank you, Oksana, for this presentation that was very interesting and this turned me back to the first days of war, really, with these answers and actions of teachers. I want to ask you about maybe geographical differences in responses, because you said that the main group or the biggest number of teachers were from Cherkasy region. And did you observe any maybe other responses from different regions and different reactions, emotional maybe reactions? And also my second question is about psychological support. You said that teachers usually think about their students' well-being, their families' well-being, not about themselves. So how do you think, do they need, or it might be possible that sometime in future teachers will get psychological support from some organizations or from Ministry of Education or something like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana, for your question. Thanks from Oksana to Oksana. Yeah. The first question about differences. So we did not observe any particular differences in responses between teachers from different regions. Maybe if we dug deeper, if we had dug deeper, we would have found them, but then we did. The second question about psychological support to teachers is the way they get psychological support, as I see it now, is through courses that they have to take, and the courses are provided by ministry, by different international organizations, a lot of courses by Legal Foundation, yes, that are devoted to social emotional learning, yes, and how to provide support to their students. And these courses are usually organized in the way that they have to practice it before delivering it to students. And I was an enumerator, like taking information from teacher, having a lot of just hundreds of conversations with teachers who had the course on social emotional learning. And what we noticed that the most important thing was that the course supported the teachers because they were students first and they experienced all the influences from the course, all the practices, all the activities on themselves first before they delivered it to the students. So this is quite an important help that the teachers could get. I think that they might have got even more help if they had wanted, but they didn't.
Thank you, Oksana. Thank you both to Oksana and Oksana. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. Then thank you again to our dear speaker, Oksana Zabolotna. And thank you to all of you who join us today. And we would appreciate your feedback. Please take a moment to fill out very short survey available in the chat. And I'm just gonna share my screen for a second. Here is the QR code that you can follow also. And also, please join us for our future webinars. You can email us on ulic@Alberta, Canada,